150 million daily active users, higher daily engagement rates than PlayStation, Steam, and Fortnite combined. That is what's wrong with the gaming industry. And of course, this is Roblox. It has the impact this is having is absolutely horrific. Now, what we're going to do in this video is take a look at the report produced by Affilion by Matthew Ball. This is the state of video gaming in 2026. There are some diabolical takeaways from this, and it will highlight why the likes of us think, why are these companies making such sort of strange decisions when it comes to monetization in their games, when it comes to new content directions? And I'm afraid the answer is these kind of reports is essentially what the money men are making their decisions based off. It's not what is the best game. It's how can we make the most money? Again, we've seen this recently with PlayStation. When you look at Bluepoint, they had them literally the best or one of the best studios in the world with untold knowledge on remasters, remakes, and every game they produced was basically a banger, especially all the remakes that they've done and the remasters. They got forced to work on a God of War live service game because the suits over at PlayStation read shit like this and go, yep, Fortnite, Roblox, they make all the money, gacha games, mobile games. We want a live service game. We don't want a tried and tested remaster because that's only going to make us X amount of millions. We want the big money. We want the Roblox money. Oh, dearie me. This is probably going to be quite eye-opening. This is the report itself, the early access version of this. There is a link in the video description below to this. But before we get into this, I do just want to bring up a tweet which highlights some of the main, I guess, takeaways of this. Then we will go through this. We'll go through it rapid. Don't worry. We won't spend ages on this because there's 168 pages. But I think this is going to be quite enlightening. So Joachim Arkren, again, I apologize if I've got your name wrong, puts this together over on Twitter and basically says, yeah, I've just read the report and these are the key takeaways that he's identified. So number one, game industry revenue hit 195.6 billion in 2025. That's an all-time high. Operating profits, though, have declined since 2019. So that would indicate it's getting a lot more expensive to produce games. And we know this for a fact, right? The budgets are getting massive. Development costs are getting massive. And it's becoming harder and harder to recoup those costs. Number two, almost all of the growth went into three parties: Chinese publishers, platform holders like Apple, Google, and Sony, and Roblox. Everyone else is fighting over a market that barely moved, which again is very worrying, right? You know, you always see the memes of like, this should have Steam in this as well, but you get the memes over Valve where it's like, you know, Gaben does nothing and wins again. It's kind of that thing going on, but obviously Apple do this on the App Store. Google does it as well. You know, Sony are doing it on the PSN. Roblox is its own environment. So, yeah, like these are always going to make money because as their user counts go up, the transactions are taking place on the platforms and they're generating money. And obviously, independently developed games, you have to use one of these platform aggregators at some point, whether it's going to be Steam. You know, you can't just self-publish your own game, right? That just doesn't work. You're not going to be able to distribute direct to the consumers. So you are having to, you know, pay the split. Number three, there isn't one video gaming industry. There are many. A Western AAA studio, a Roblox developer, and a Chinese mobile publisher are in completely different businesses with different growth rates and different competitors. And I think my quick reaction, initial takeaway to this is the Western AAA basically want what the Chinese mobile publishers have got wrapped up in a Roblox container in their games because they've got the big money budgets and they want the sort of results these guys get, which is again leads to all of these bullshit decisions we have to deal with. Like I said, the Bluepoint one is a good example because, you know, that studio should have been remaking Bloodborne, not pissing around with a God of War live service game. But when it comes to the money situation, a remake of Bloodborne is not going to make anywhere near as much money as a God of War live service game if that game popped off. That's the problem. And a lot of these executives are making those kind of decisions. They don't give a shit about the gaming, you know, community or what is like the right thing to do. It's just all about money. Number four, and my answer to that, again, this is like, you know, we live in a capitalist society, but at some point, what's the difference between a billion and 10 billion, right? I mean, there obviously is a big difference, but it's like, you know, budgets almost need to be scaled down. You know, if you're the movie industry is the same thing. Like, look, if you could spend 10 million to make a game, which is impossible if you want any kind of decent AA or AAA game, well, it's not going to happen for a AAA at all. what happens if you only made 25 million, 20 million, so you made 10 million back on that? Would that be enough? Probably, if the development cycle wasn't that long, and as I said, the budget was low, maybe. But the problem is everything's ballooned, and that's just literally impossible to do that. So everyone needs a massive return, and it just wrecks the industry. So number 4, again, I touched the opener of the video. Roblox had 150 million daily users in Q3 of 2025. Its quarterly engagement is now equal to Steam, PlayStation, and Fortnite combined. It monetizes at 0.5 cents an hour. PlayStation, however, monetizes at 0.44, so a lot higher monetization, but nowhere near the player base. Roblox is winning on volume. And again, you've got to remember with Roblox, maybe a lot of you guys watching this video might not be familiar with it. I've literally never installed Roblox on any device that I've got, but a lot of the younger generations are on this, and this is becoming their thing. So it's almost like we're looking at the gaming industry, all these different games and the games we had growing up and the games that we've enjoyed over the last 10 years, and it's all just becoming homogenized into Roblox. And it's why I have these sort of like mental breakdowns when I look at Roblox, and I'm like, they're just introducing generative AI games. They're just like, that's not a way to go. You know what I mean? That ain't a way to go. But a lot of the younger generations are just never going to be exposed to any other way. It's quite insidious. Anyway, number 5, I should say, mobile game advertising generated 67 billion in gross revenue in 2025. Most industry analysts doesn't count it, including ads, and the non-China market grew by 35 billion since 21. Excluding ads, it grew 6.8 billion. The two numbers describe completely different industries. Number 6, US gaming participation is down 2.5 to 4 percentage points since the pandemic. Most of the 8 major Western markets are flat or declining in players and spend. Now, obviously, pandemic, everyone's locked inside. You've got lockdowns, you've got all of that. Gaming is going to increase, right? So that was a spike. I'm sure if we look at a 50-year chart into the future, if we possibly, obviously that's impossible, but imagine if we could, that massive spike at COVID probably still would stand out. Maybe not over 50 years, hopefully you'd have population of gamers would increase, right? But you get what I'm kind of trying to say, hopefully. Number 7, the rest of the world is growing at 11.7% annually. The mature market 8 is growing at 1.4%. Capturing that gap requires designing for low-end devices, building economics around $5 to $50 per year per player, and making games for local cultures, not Western ones. And I actually would argue there's been a lot of games that have come out that are under the $50 mark. Look at your Claire Obscures of the world. Look at Mugenics of the world. They're coming in around that kind of price, and they're doing well. That is, I think, again, a lesson to AAA that people just are not going to buy $100 games, $90 games. Like that is kind of, it's just not going to work unless they could reduce their production costs, of which case you would hope they'd reduce the price, because who the hell wants to pay $100? I mean, the big one will be GTA 6 when that comes out. What will that be? We know that's going to be literally the most expensive entertainment project in history. There's a lot of all that kind of famous stuff where you see it's actually costs more than like the Burj Khalifa to make that game and things like that. So there are some insane comparisons, but still, I think this could definitely be applied, and I think it is applied to the West anyway, because I don't feel like there's much of an appetite for people to go around blasting $80, $90 on games. Obviously my feelings count for shit, but the evidence is there as well. I'd like to know what you guys think about this in the comments below. I know for me specifically, yeah, it is a decision. Like, if you say to me, here's a game that's $35, I almost think, okay, that's fine. But when it's like 70, 80, 90, I'm like, well, hang on, I need to check this kind of thing, Number 8, of the 136 billion in non-China content sales, platform stores took 33.7 billion in fees. That's iOS, Android, console, and Steam combined. Direct-to-consumer channels bypass most of these fees. Roblox has saved... Okay, so actually, this is an interesting fact. Roblox has saved 422 million in platform fees since Q1 2022 by routing spend through its own channels. So this, again, is that idea of owning the whole mechanism, right? So some companies do have this. Blizzard is a good example. You've got Battle.net, and Battle.net, you're delivering the content to your player, and then also you're delivering the microtransactions, right? And they're buying the content through your platform, so you're taking all of the cut. Whereas when it's sold on Steam, obviously Steam is taking its 30%. There may be specific agreements for some of the massive publishers, but irregardless, a percentage is going to Steam just for the fact that it's Steam. Now, the reason for that is it's the quality of the platform and it's the player base size of the platform, so it's almost like the tax that they have to pay. But Roblox is taking this to another level where everything is kind of, you don't download Roblox on Steam, do you? Roblox is its own thing. It's controlling everything. And number 9, online sports betting hit $17 billion in the US gross revenue in 2025. That's 35 times what it was in 2019. Now, I'm not going to profess to be knowledgeable enough about this, but I think wasn't there this just online betting in general on sports wasn't really a big thing in the US until recently anyway, whether that was legislative issues or whatever. But I know, like, obviously in the UK, this has been a massive thing for a while, and definitely in Europe. But anyway, iGaming globally generated 54 billion. TikTok averaged 102 million daily hours in the US alone. These aren't passive entertainment alternatives. They're interactive, real-time, and built for engagement in ways most games aren't. Now, one of the things I'll say about this, like I did touch on this on a video I made the other day, where I don't like the narrative of the all these other sort of entertainment products are taken away from the gaming industry and suffering. I think they've always existed to a degree, and things just change. You could be betting on sports games and playing, your computer at the same time, right? That could definitely be a thing. So I'm not too sure this is, yes, there are only so many hours in a day and everybody's doing certain things, but I'm not too sure you can just sort of go in and say, oh, online gambling and betting and TikTok have annihilated the gaming industry. And number 10, in 2025, 35.5% of all game content investment was outsourced. That's a record, and 74% of that growth is upstream, art, engineering, game design, not QA or localization. Hollow Knight Silksong has 3 internal credits and 94 external ones. That's the new normal. And again, this is the normal. There's a lot of studios out there, especially for live service games, that do basically produce all of their slop for their battle passes, because the actual game studio itself finds it's either cheaper to do it that way, it's probably cheaper for them to do it that way, but also the expertise is there with these companies generating things like, weapon charms and weapon skins, character skins, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, let's jump onto this PDF, because I think it's actually crazy. Okay, so, grab a drink if you want to sit for the duration of this, because we're going to go through this, and, there'll be bits and pieces we'll miss, but I think it's actually going to be quite interesting, because like I said, this is the way the gaming industry is run, really. These kind of statistics, I love getting hold of them, because it's sort of like, you can see it suddenly there becomes a reason as to why a lot of these executives are making these decisions, and you get odd things happening. That maybe are not the best thing. Like my famous Overwatch example was always, yes, well, we'll put heroes in the battle pass, new heroes that is, to unlock them, because they're our highest engagement thing. Yes. Oh dear. Anyway, so we're going to start with chapter 1, spending growth, but more retrenchment and margin struggles in 2025. So, like I said, we're going to go through this fairly quickly, but I need to sit back a little bit here as well. It's that big on my monitor. I'm like, what? Whoa. Yeah, so this is global video game content sales had a strong 2025, growing 5.3% year over year and hitting an all-record high of 195 billion. So you can kind of see the worldwide consumer spending on video game content, right? This is apparently everything, and it's nominal prices. So yeah, you can see, obviously back in the 90s, and then you got this massive ramp from 2015. This probably coincides with the takeoff of microtransactions, I bet. And then, yeah, the rest is kind of history. A little bit of a dip there, but this is like obviously your COVID kind of era. But then it does actually hit its all-time high after COVID, which is the takeaway from there, I think. So the industry high was achieved through new highs in each of mobile, PC, and console. So worldwide consumer spending on video game content, you've got mobile, PC, and console. Mobile is obviously obscene. Now, the thing with mobile is it's just economies of scale, right? There's way more mobile gamers than there are console and PC gamers, right? Just because you've got a lot of emerging markets, you've got places like India, you've got hundreds of millions of phone users in India. China's obviously the same. You've got South America as well. It's the same. I think even Africa. But of course, people in the West also play mobile games as well. You can be in multiple categories, but I think the fact is, it's just more. There's more phones, right? It's easier to get a mobile phone than it is to build a gaming PC. I think that just goes without saying. And then, yeah, we see a couple of great releases, which is good stuff. Actually, which is kind of interesting, right? Look at the number of indie games, or what you would class as indie games on this list. There's quite a few, right? Anyway, but despite 3 straight years of industry growth, a record high for revenue, yada, 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 worldwide venture capital and private equity funding in video game content development Okay, so this is the amount of investment. So you got pre-seed, early stage, and the deal count. You can see this. I mean, this obviously. I'm sort of blocking this eye in the corner, which is kind of. It's just trust me, it's going down. But this is COVID, and this is when there's a massive rush to go. Oh my God, there's loads of people playing games. We need to invest in this, and so everyone went crazy. All the VC did because it was like the next gold rush. Completely not realizing that obviously people would go outside again. It was crazy. Yeah, we'll go through that. So what we've got here with budget cuts, annual gross reported layoffs. Okay, so what's interesting with this is you can kind of see we are still a bit higher than 2022's level. The question is, will this decline even more? Now, obviously, there's other pressures on this. You've got things like AI and all that kind of crap, which might put even more pressure on layoffs in the industry. But obviously, you can see 2024 had a massive. This is going to be what they'll call a readjustment to the COVID overspend. And what we've got here is video game industry layoffs against open roles. Again, like I said, I'll go through some of this pretty quick because we'll be here for ages. I'm only on page 10 and we've got 160 to go. So moreover, increasing share of new content and investment goes to external development partners that can offer low talent costs. Yeah, so this is that reason of outsourcing, and we see outsourcing is reaching highs because it's just cheaper and more efficient for studios to do this. So you can kind of see actually, like, look at the outsourced versus insourced here. And then, I mean, it was quite big in 2022, but yeah, this is crazy. An outsourced share of total year-on-year increase. You've got pretty, so like, I mean, it's just going up, right? It's just becoming easier, and also there's probably more of these studios as well, and there may even be studios that get set up to do this as well. You know, instead of it being like maybe a novel idea a few years ago. So in sum, the video game industry overall continued its restructuring and retreat despite revenue growth. So private studio and publisher funding fell another 55% by dollars and deal counts. Even more games and studios were cut outright or had budgets trimmed. Another 9,000 layoffs following from 35,000 in 2022 to 24. A hiring further concentrated in lower cost foreign markets, and an even greater share of new content investment went to outsourcing. So in 2025, content investment as a share of net revenue hit a non-pandemic 7-year low. From 2019 to 2022, annual content spend grew 11 billion, which is plus 39%. And in 2022 to 25, it was only plus 6% at 2.3 billion. That's kind of crazy, really. Okay, even so, the operating system margins for standalone game makers, i.e. those not owned by game platforms, okay, outside of China, are far below pre-pandemic levels and struggling to grow. So again, this is that idea of, you know, you don't, if you like, you know, if you're a Valve and you're putting your own game on your own platform, you know, you're loving it. But if you're somebody who isn't a Valve, you've got that additional hurdle. Let's say Stylosa Gaming Incorporated makes a game. Like, what am I going to do with it? I can't just promote it on Twitter and hope people buy it. I'm going to have to put it on Steam. It's going to have to go on Epic. You know, it's going to have to be promoted everywhere. And it's that is like such a hurdle to get things going. In some ways, you can kind of argue this is sort of what's going on with Deadlock at the moment, although Deadlock's development, you know, Valve have got unlimited money. They can mess around and do whatever they like. But really, there's no like financial pressure on them. Anyway, in fact, the erosion of margins is so great that total operating profits have declined since 2019, despite consumer spending surging 40%, the equivalent to 56 billion in a year. So underneath me is the 2025 preliminary results. But you can see adjusted operating income, 33 non-China, non-platform video game publishers with accessible P&Ls. Worldwide, all platform sample set covers 59 billion in net revenue. Yeah, you can see where this is going, right? So we're moving to chapter 2. This is why growth is scarcer than headlines suggest. So while global consumer spend is now at all-time highs, these top-line headlines cover up what has really been shrinking pool of revenue for most developers and publishers. But why? China is eating the video game industry. Net growth in console is growth in platform subscriptions. Brightness in PC is just enough. Might be dim, okay. Roblox is stealing share and growing its own garden. I think to just quickly like jump on the PC thing, the PC's been quite interesting, right? Because I think a lot of people thought PC would be in decline, consoles would stabilize, and mobile would just keep growing. But actually, as we've seen over the last couple of years, PC is kind of not rapidly increased, but it is definitely stabilized and does have steady growth. But anyway, Roblox is stealing share and growing its own garden. decline in home markets, industry competition is growing, but appetites remain unchanged. Price increases are helping drive growth, but not all titles have pricing power. So in China, 20% of global player spend, but now 38% of growth versus 15 in 2019. If a game maker wants to match global growth, they must win in China. So here is another thing. Again, like, this data has obviously been put together by Affilion and etc. You can say maybe there's inaccuracies and stuff like that, but you'll be able to notice this in the games that you're playing, that you will see. I mean, like, so Overwatch is an example for me. Overwatch has its, like, literally a completely different NetEase environment for the game, where they do different promotional branded content. I think they've got for Blade Point, they've got one, right, which is only available in China at the moment. They need to crack that market. They need to be in that market, offering them specific content to match the global revenue generation, basically. And that's what's going on here, which I think is quite interesting. Yeah. So again, China, 84% of its players' spend goes to Chinese-made games. And this, I think, is probably one of those stats the Western devs are probably looking at, and the Western studios, like, we want to get in on this. We don't just want all of this going to in-house or, like, in China produced games. But I mean, we're seeing the opposite to that. I mean, look at Wukong. You've got games that are breaking out of China for the first time, and that are, like, high-quality games as well. Foreign game makers now only a quarter of the remaining 16% on imports after local publishing and distribution. Which obviously, there's a cut because they have to have a local distribution partner in China, and it's, very complicated and all of that stuff. Anyway, China. So the Chinese game makers have also grown their annual share of the non-China market from 10.7 to 14%. So you can see they are breaking out. Thereby, they've got 24% of total non-gaming China growth, total non-China growth, since 2019. So again, this kind of jumps into what I was sort of saying, where, yeah, they are starting to grow on the global market. So this is a crazy stat. This is, while the Chinese market is only 20% of global player spending and only 38% of growth, Chinese publishers have captured 50% or more of global player spending growth since 2019. That's crazy. That's actually crazy. So moving on to console, by 2025, the category had more than recovered from its post-pandemic sales pullback, hitting an all-time high of 41.6 billion. So console's not doing too well. It is doing well, I should say. Not doing too well. What am I talking about? Not if you're Xbox. But then not if you're PlayStation as well, because you just get rid of all the studios. What are we doing? Oh, dear, oh, dear. Anyway, although at least your tariffs are probably getting sorted out if you're in the US now. So you probably won't have to pay stupid money for a Switch, for example. We'll have to wait and see what happens with that, though. Oh, my days. Anyway, 190% of net spending growth since 2020 has gone to platform services. Total spending on game sales and transactions is down. So again, this is another one of those things where it's the game companies, the publishers, and everybody want a platform that you're in, endlessly spending money on. Of course, the original platforms like this were your MMOs, your EverQuests of the day, right? Where it was, or your Ultima Onlines and things like that, where it was like this idea of you were a reoccurring customer basically on a monthly fee was crazy, But this is now the way things are. Obviously, we've gone way past that. The Oblivion horse armor kicked it all off, and it's just crazy. But this is, quite damning, because it's saying the growth is just in your existing players, which has a knock-on effect of it becomes more difficult to, for players to go and play new IPs. Because why would you? Because you're going to be so indentured into whatever platform you play. Whether it's, when I'm talking to platforms, I'm talking things like League of Legends, right? That's on the Riot platform. Why would you play a competitive game if you're so heavy into League of Legends? You're not going to be pulled away. If you're on the Blizzard platform playing World of Warcraft, it's the same thing, right? So yeah, I don't think that comes as a shock, though. I think we kind of all knew that. As Chinese sales are over 150% of total spending growth since 2020, the actual market for game makers has shrunk by 4.6 billion and is up only 8% since 2019. Not only did it skip a post-pandemic decline, but annual PC content sales have also grown by a remarkable 30% on 9.4 billion since 2020, roughly 16 times as much dollar growth as console. So this, again, I mean, it shows you PC is like, it's really strong, PC is. Even after factoring out China-based sales, which constituted 29% of total growth since 2020, PC content sales are still up roughly 6.7 billion, so that's great. But PC's growth is just outstripped by consoles' decline. Together and excluding China, the category is plus 2.1 billion since 2020, well under the plus 10 billion headline. Note that much of the recent growth in non-Chinese spending was actually Chinese users who use VPNs to access, okay, that's interesting, and pay for Steam games through foreign markets. See, again, this is Gaben doing nothing but winning because China's buying his games anyway. They're just using VPNs to do it. And in 2025, Chinese language PC users disengaged from Steam to local alternatives, presumably, finishing the year with the lowest share of the total since May 2020. So, okay, maybe Gaben isn't totally winning, but, local Chinese platforms are starting to take up that slack, or the publishers are starting to make inroads into directly supplying their games in China without having to rely on, well, they wouldn't have relied on people just using VPNs to get out and download the games on Steam, because that wouldn't be a reliable tactic, or at least I don't think it would be. Anyway, so Roblox, here we go, the enemy, the great enemy. This singular industry expander was over 4.5% of non-China spend in 2025 and has captured or created 60% of net growth since 2021. This is probably, oh dear, this is going to be bad. I mean, Roblox is making stupid money. The realized market for non-Chinese game makers up only 1 billion since 2020, even though the total market is up to 24 billion, which is 14%. And since 2021, the realized market shrunk 1.8%. Again, like I said, I'm going to go through some of these pretty quick because, like I said, there's a lot of slides and we'll be going for a long time if I'm stopping on all of them. You can just pause this anyway and check them out. Or, like I said, there's a link in the video description below. Okay, so home markets. Meanwhile, the countries that are typically prioritized by major game makers have declined outright. It's smaller and less familiar markets that are growing global revenue. So, consumer spending on video game content in the US, Japan, South Korea, Germany, UK, and France, Canada, and Italy. Okay, so this would be split by, so it's all of these countries together, split by PC and mobile. And you can kind of, like, it's kind of similar, right? Look at this, PC and mobile. I mean, okay, PC and console is less than mobile, but it's not like it's wiped the floor with it, which is quite interesting. But remember, these are Western countries. I think that's the takeaway there. Because if there's a comparison with Eastern countries, I think it would be basically completely the other way, potentially. Anyway, industry competition. Despite revenue stagnations, annual releases have surged. This is another problem, right? Since 2019, PC is up 150%. Console is up 330%, and platform catalogs are now 200 plus. What the hell? So this is crazy, right? This shows you how difficult it is to stand out in the crowd. If you're making a game, it was a lot easier to make a game in 2019 than it is to make a game in 2025 because you were only against 8,000 new releases. Now you're against 20,000, and I'm sure this is going to keep going up. This is probably going to be one of those things which is a big issue for people looking to develop games, because even if you make a fantastically polished, awesome game, how do you stand out from the crowd? It is kill or be killed, but in an extreme way. And then obviously you can see PlayStation as well. So, I mean, the numbers are obviously greatly higher for PC just because I think it's a lot easier to develop and produce your own PC game. You're not having to go through certification and all that kind of stuff. It's just way more expensive to make a console game on average, I would imagine. But this is like, 2,400 in 2025, and it was only like, what? I mean, what's this? 480 or so in, well, 500, let's say, 580 in 2019. So, yeah, still a big increase. Industry competition. The top PC console franchises, each 9 to 33 years old, hold a stable 45% of all player hours, and where share has been lost, it's mostly to the... So this, again, is an indictment of if you do not have a strong IP, it becomes more and more difficult to get people to... This, again, it's why Sony were using Bluepoint to make a God of War live service game. It's why Sony are making a Horizon live service game, because they say, okay, we've got the name, we've got the IP, and when they look at charts like this and go, we've got a way higher chance if we use an established IP, and that's what's going on. So crazy. Industry competition. New PC and console games get only 4 to 7% of total playtime, and half goes to just 4 titles. Steam reports higher, but new includes each year's NBA 2K, FC, COD, etc. So this is... that's kind of sad, but it is what it is, I guess. So industry competition. Mobile spend is 5 years flat, and new releases are at a decade low share of spend, and downloads as old giants strengthen and UA costs crowd out discovery. So, I mean, global mobile game installs by game age. I mean, you can, like, again, this is just all data showing that the older the IP, the more established it is, the better chance you've got of selling. And I go, well, we've got some examples there of Mario Kart and such. So lastly, many of the leaders that have grown or sustained revenue have done so by successfully raising price, not from growing players, purchase of playtime. So straight up just increasing the price, but keeping the player base. So what have we got here? So we've got PlayStation subs, the cost of that. We've got top selling Nintendo game platform game, so Mario Kart, and you can see how it's just increased in price over time. I mean, you can argue the price increase from $60 in 2014 to $80 in 2025 isn't actually that bad given inflation, but should it have been 60 to begin with? But it doesn't matter because they can charge that and they do it. And again, you can see above me, I'm over NBA's currency, but you can see these other two above me. So Fortnite V-Bucks, you can see how they've gone up, marginal increases, but it is an increase. And given the quantity that they're selling, it's just increasing their revenues. And again, for Candy Crush as well. Although interestingly, they've kept their times 10 the same. So they want that gateway drug there, but then they've pumped the rest up. And so, while global player spend has firmly rebounded in 2022, where, when, and how the sum is spent has changed drastically. And thus, so too have many developers' prospects. So Chinese publishers captured 50% of global spend. Net of platform subscription services console spend is down 13% since 2020. Net decline in console since 2020 offsets 68% of PC growth. Roblox is 60% of spend growth outside of China. In the major market 8, spend is still down 4.5%. PC console releases are up 1.5 to 3.3 times since 2019, but share is captive. New mobile releases are at a record low. Only the top franchises tend to have pricing power. So with growth so elusive despite record revenue and margins falling despite cost cuts, stock prices make more sense. A few names are up 4% or even 200%. So this is just I'm kind of covering this, but this is just showing you a bunch of stocks and share prices. So obviously you can see Roblox, Take-Two, Nintendo, and stuff above me. Can you see Nintendo? I think you can, yeah. But only 3 companies managed to beat the S&P 500. So S&P 500 is basically like the growth rate of that is seen as the standard. If you're investing and you beat the S&P 500, you're doing well. If you're below it, then you're below the average kind of thing, because you could just invest in the index and have the index returns. So yeah, and many important video game industry leaders shed 10%, 20%, 50%, 80% of their value. Well, we know Ubisoft is like, I'm in the bottom corner here. I'm going to just turn my camera off so you can see this. But like Ubisoft, you can see down there. I mean, they're minus 78%. I mean, it's actual disaster time for those guys. I mean, what the hell? But, most of them are not doing that well, although, yeah. Anyway, Index 2021, the picture is even more dire. Only Konami beat the S&P. Other top performers grew only 4 to 24%. 5 years, most names fell and many lost 50 to 95%. Okay, so chapter 3. Video games are losing the attention war in the major market 8. So this is that thing of, well, let's go through this. It'll be interesting. So this is the major market 8. So let's break this down. So prior to the pandemic, 8 developed countries constituted over 60% of consumer spending on PC, console, and mobile. So the US was number 1. Japan was number 3. China was 2. Although they've put the rest of the world together. So China, Russia, and Mexico. UK was number 5. Germany 6. France. Okay. So in the years since the pandemic, the mature market 8 have encountered a severe, persistent, and surprising reality they are losing in the war for attention. So share of global consumer spend on video game content. Okay. The US number 1 market by consumer spend globally. Surveys consistently report that the share of the population that plays games has fallen by 2.5 to 4 points since or before the pandemic. Yeah, so these are different. So Ampere, ESA, and Sakana, different stats companies, effectively showing their different stats, or survey result data. Anyway, so in Canada, they're number 8. Though irregularly polled, the Canadian Trade Association's last report showed that roughly 1 in 6 adult players were lost from 2018 to 2022, despite the lockdowns. So I think this is where that narrative of like people have just stopped playing games and they're doing other things. But I don't fully believe that. Like, I mean, there could be something more going on here. That if we've just been through data which is showing that, it's just these big name games are predominantly being played. Your Fortnites, the games within Roblox, the FIFA games or the FC football games, whatever. the COD games. Maybe people are just bored and they want something new, and they're trying to find something new, and that almost makes them step away. But then you can say there's that many new games launching, they should be able to find something. So maybe it's a discovery problem. It's quite complicated, really. So in South Korea, the share of the population that plays video games has fallen by 15 points compared to the 2017-2019 average, and down 22 points since the pandemic highs. That's quite a big drop, really, for South Korea, which you would see as like, one of the biggest gaming countries, especially given its esports heritage. So Italy, they're number 11. The share of adults who regularly play video games has shrunk by over 5 points in 2019, with mobile up a point, console down a point, and PC down by 6.5. So in the UK, good old Blighty, the overall participation rate grew. It's because our weather's bad. That's what it is. 21 points in 2020. Well, no, that was because of COVID. Anyway, but a third of these gains has been lost over the 4 subsequent years, with each platform down. So, yeah, I mean, but the thing is, like, you still look at this. So you look at 2019, then you've got COVID coming in, bangs up, but then it still has not dropped down. So it has increased. There is a lingering buff from COVID, I suppose, in some ways, although it is more complicated than that, and you can't just look at one simplistic data point and make such a crazy statement. But yeah, it's probably, like I said, because the weather's so bad. What can we do? I mean, the weather, it's literally rained since December, since Christmas Day. It has rained in the UK every day without fail. Please stop the rain. Anyway, France, I did see the sun today, though, I will say that. So France are number 7. Though participation rates are stable after COVID-19, they have flatlined overall since 2016. I mean, France, yeah, they've just kind of chilled. France have. Look, they haven't really grew. Again, remember, this could be, specific things going on a country basis and all of that. I'm not clever enough to understand. Anyway, a rare upmarket. Oh, so the Germans are up in terms of participation rate. I'm dying. Germany gave only 4 players per 100 in the 8 years from 2016 to 24. So Germany's up. Well done, Germany. Well, hang on. PC's down. I'm blocking it, but PC's down, trust me. And then console is up. Mobile's up. Yeah. So Japan, with participation rates up 11 points in 2019, Japan is a MMA outlier, though its modest and shrinking population means that only 6 million new players since 2019. So this is, so Japan is still kind of going up, but obviously does have a declining population problem. One might argue that the loss of 1%, did I miss a page there? No. Of a loss of 1% or 2 or 3 of players is not that big of a problem in the video game industry. If a player stopped playing altogether, then they probably weren't big gamers. And so how much revenue value is really lost? Valid. But in practice, all player loss is a compounding problem. So growth can only come from greater monetization of ever fewer remaining players, which we are seeing, right? Prices going up. If players don't spend more, all new investments, so hiring, raises, new games, etc., must be borne by the existing players, or otherwise reduce publisher profits. So again, pushes the price up. Individual games can only grow by stealing other games' players or playtime or spend. This is something which I think is going on all the time in the industry. And I think, again, what worries the executives and stuff is if new players are coming online and they're inside Roblox, then how do you get them out of Roblox? If Roblox is offering a load of similar experiences to what you can get in other places, although nowhere near the quality level, it kind of doesn't matter because the user is in the Roblox platform. It's even harder for new games to break through. Yeah, definitely. Just because there's more of them. The network effects of all games and gaming platforms are impaired, which in turn impairs the satisfaction and spending rates of remaining players. And then, if some players have stopped playing altogether, many are likely playing less too. Player loss is the clearest signal, but it's just the smoke behind a bigger fire. So in the US, which is the number 1 market, PC, console, and content spend is down 8%. Mobile's annual growth flattened, but is plus 12% since 2020, and now outstrips PC and console. So I think we've all collectively known that mobile does generate a lot of money, and it's kind of funny. Like, why has it taken these big studios so long to almost churn out mobile versions of their games? Because the profits are clearly there to be taken. Where's the mobile Overwatch? There is a mobile Diablo game, which is horrific, but I'm sure makes them probably the most money out of any of the games they've got, or some insane stat. Call of Duty Mobile's a thing, and So I think they obviously are making mobile versions of the games. Obviously, Fortnite's mobile, etc. But Minecraft is mobile. But yeah, it is kind of funny, isn't it? You think every game would just have a de facto mobile version, given like how much money they could make? It's not just down on spend either. Mobile games installs are at a 12-year low. Hours of played have tumbled, and even time spent watching video game streaming has flatlined. So you've got Android installs, well, games on iOS and Android, mobile games. Yeah, you can see it dropping down. US mobile gaming hours played, hours watched of game streams. So this is mostly Twitch, YouTube gaming, and Kick. Again, like you're going to see a pandemic spike because that's what everyone had to do. But I mean, given like you look at 2019, I'm going to defend this because I guess this is in some ways what I'm doing. But 35 billion hours watched there, and then we're up quite a lot there compared to that. So I wouldn't say this is flatlined. If anything, this is starting to grow again. Canada, number 8. After 5 years, Canadian and PC console sales are still 1.5% below 2020 levels, while mobile is up only 0.7%. But growth is tough when consumers or customers are diminishing. So in the UK, PC and console flatlined from 21 to 24. Mobile, which is how most of its post-pandemic player base is still growing, and at 4.2%. So mobile is still growing. It's quite interesting for the UK. The PC market's never been particularly big in the UK compared to console. But yeah. So PC console shrank from 10%. This is in Korea. Mobile dropped by, yeah. I think what we'll do is we'll skip through these sections because it's just breaking down each country by its own specifics. Like you get the idea, right? Things are generally in decline. So this is the mature market 8. Total PC console software sales shrank by 8%. And mobile is down 3.8%. So this is basically in the biggest markets, you can see there is a decline. So, okay, chapter 4, the novel interactive competitors taking attention time spent away from video games. So this one, I think will be interesting because this is that idea of like, there's loads of other games to be playing. Not games, sorry, things to be doing apart from playing games. Interactivity is still ascendant, but that's video games' challenge. Interactive experiences continue to emerge and offer novel forms of skill, mastery, progression loops, and social play. And it lists various ones there. AI assistants, that's interesting. Social video, in just the US, consumption of TikTok is up 39 million hours a day compared to the second half of 2020 and the first half of 2021. Yeah, I mean, these platforms did really well. Like, these got an incredible COVID boost, I think, which just carried on. And obviously they became like, the sort of go-to brain rot platforms, right? And then it's not just TikTok, right? So YouTube Shorts, and then you've got Instagram Reels, but they all copied TikTok, right? So TikTok are obviously the biggest short video platform out there. So TikTok's growth hasn't just come from direct competitors. Americans now use 122 million more hours social media per day than in 2021. So 21 minutes for each of the 341 million. You can see how this is spread. So YouTube's still the big daddy. Just because average daily hours, like YouTube skews more to this because you're more, like if you're watching this video now, you've probably been watching it for like, I don't know, 40 minutes or something. That's like, a massive whack. If you're watching TikTok for 40 minutes, your brain is addled. And then there's Instagram and then Facebook below me and then, yeah, TikTok. So creator porn. In 2025, Americans spent $5 billion on OnlyFans. This is up from 215 million in 2019. In exchange for pay-to-access images, video, as well as intimate parasocial direct messaging. So the US are leading like crazy in this. Like, what? Oh dear, oh dear. And this is it's a UK company as well. This is technically Crypto always siphoned hours of spend from crypto. What? Siphoned hours of spend from video gaming, but crypto's first boom coincided with video gaming's COVID surge. The second, what is this? Cryptocurrency. So they're trying to say people are trading crypto and not playing games. What have I done here? Is that really a thing? Is that really a thing? What? So people are like, I don't know, maybe it is. Okay, this is getting kind of outrageous. Just like literally doing anything means you're not playing games, and that's terrible. We need you playing games. Meme coin transaction value pump. What the hell? Oh dear. AI apps. Okay. Consumer-centric apps, including those for roleplay, erotica, and art, have also soared in the years since video games installed. I guess what they're trying to do is make the argument for, like, maybe video games. There's other things you can do now with AI and crypto trading, which is more entertaining. And then prediction markets are these things are crazy. In Q4, users placed 1.5 million bets a day, la, 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 and you can see them all listed. I mean, these things didn't exist, right? So it's a new thing which has popped up. Basically, if you don't know what this is, it's just you can basically bet yes or no, or it's going to happen or it won't happen, or I think it's going to happen on this day or that day or whatever. You basically one or two options on a thing happening. It could be stupid things like the score of a football game, or like Donald Trump says the word Olympics and things like that, stupid stuff like that, or how many times Elon Musk tweets a day. I'm really struggling to find, to remember examples of that, but it's a new thing. But sports betting, so again, has gone up. But I think this just might be because the US, it was an immature market in some ways for sports betting online, and it's getting more mature. Yeah, more increase. So iGaming. So this is like online poker and stuff like that going up. Yeah. I mean, I'm blasting through this because they're all kind of just making the same point. India is a clear case study now. It can squeeze the growth out of the latter. Real money game and traditional video games. Yeah. So look, real money gaming. I guess it's like the idea of gambling, right? But it excludes black market stuff. So like those, like I said, it's those these things here. Them. I've lost the ability to talk. Like the poker, the online poker and stuff. Okay, so mechanics, design, and IP. There's a little difference between mobile gaming slots and iCasino slots. And if a player, and of course, there's like major content creators have taken massive deals with Kick, and they're just sitting there spinning. Well, I suppose they're crypto, aren't they, as well, in some ways? Crypto slots and all that kind of stuff. Which is just like, if you're into it, fair enough, but certainly not a thing for me. And you can see how this is just like slot machine gambling. It's one of the reasons why I think Vegas struggles as well now, because a lot of people just do this online. Yeah, mobile casino going up. Yeah, well, I'm just going to jump through some of these pretty quick, I think. Video games not only compete with many new interactive substitutes, but video gamers. Yeah. American men 18 to 35 are 1.4 to 2 times as likely to play video games and up to 3.6 likely to use a short-form video, OnlyFans, AI, and prediction markets, trade crypto, sports bet, and iGame. Okay. Altogether, men 18 to 35 are 15% of the US adult population, but 21% of mobile gamers and 29% of PC console gamers. Okay. So this kind of stuff helps if you're trying to target a game, I suppose. Like who you're going to aim it at. There's a certain amount of the population in an age group, in a demographic, etc., that you can target. Yeah, this is just you're playing games less. Yeah. So interesting, right? I think it does make a fairly, a decent argument there, but I just think, I don't know. I think people have just got bored with the games that are the big games, and they just want new games. But then it's harder for new games to get traction because the big games take all of the attention, I suppose. It's weird. It's weird when you think about it. Okay, Chapter 5, the 5 biggest areas of revenue growth in the video game industry in 2026. So non-core markets, advertising, direct-to-consumer, external development, and Roblox. I think what I'm going to do is it's the same. I think what I'm going to do, right? Okay, I'm going to just because we're only on page 90 of 160. You can see there's a hell of a lot here. Let's jump forward and see what kind of conclusions are made. So special thanks. The results of different companies in the video game industry exist in different universities. Yeah, universities. Sorry. Okay. So this is just like total addressable market, the size of the market, how much money they can make. Again, it's like a lot of data. Yeah, to find growth, we have to acknowledge there is no video game industry. Yeah. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it at that because, as I say, we'd be here for like hours if I went through all of that. I think what's interesting, though, is when you look at stuff like that and you take, like, You guys are probably like me, right? Where you view gaming as like it's an art form, it's a passion, it's something we enjoy, and you've got fun games, fun memories of games. You've got games that you play now, and you enjoy them for a whole lot of reasons. But then you get really confused when you see the decisions that are being made by companies. Why are they getting rid of a game studio? Why are they not developing something which just looks to be an absolute slam dunk home run? Why is that not being made? I'm a Command and Conquer fan, and I could not understand why Command and Conquer Generals 2 was cancelled, right? I actually played a very early version of that, and I thought it was okay. I was a big fan of Generals. I wanted to see that game. The problem was RTS games were not seen as a great investment at that time. Everyone wanted a MOBA game. MOBAs was seen as the natural evolution of RTS games, so let's make a MOBA instead, or let's try and make an RTS game that's like a MOBA. You see games like Command & Conquer 4 tried that, and they were actually terrible. But me as the gamer, I just wanted Generals 2 to be a more modern version of Generals, and I'd have been happy. But it wouldn't have made enough money, and that's the problem, because the industry is driven by the amount of money it needs to generate, and this is just going up and up and up over the years, whether it's because players are going down a little bit so they have to charge you more money, or it's in conjunction with rising budgets because development costs are getting absolutely astronomical. So then that's forcing them to chase certain things which have a much higher potential of return. You see this with like Bethesda. Look at Fallout 76. That wouldn't even exist if it was not for the fact it could be a live service game they could make money on, right? You probably would have just had another Fallout game made already by now. Where's Skyrim? Well, not Skyrim. I was going to say, where's Skyrim 2 now? Where's Elder Scrolls 6? But yeah, the list just goes on and on. Very interesting stuff, though. Let me know what you think about this in the comments below, guys. But yeah, this is, I guess, a bit of a look behind the curtain as to the way the suits just make decisions. It's all about money, but you can see they're not just willy-nilly going, oh, copy that game because it's done well. It's like, we want a similar style of thing to that. How can we shoehorn that into our existing product? And how can we maximally milk everyone with monetization? All right, guys, I've been Stylos. You can follow me on everything, which is at Stylos. And if you enjoyed the video, then, yeah, do let me know what you think about it. And I'm going to lie down because I've spoke for way too long and my voice is destroyed. Goodbye.